All right, so we're going to jump right into things. Again, starting with sword and buckler, working out of the Walpurgis manuscript. So we're going to do a quick crash review of the wards we talked about last time. We're going to go into some sieges today and kind of talk about what they mean, how to apply them, and what it looks like when you're actually dealing with fighting an opponent. So we're going through the wards. Again, wards are just touchstones, base points where their positions the normal person is going to find throughout the fight, and it gives you a way of describing, talking about what is going on. So first ward is shown as underarm, second ward from the right shoulder, third ward from the left shoulder, fourth ward is high, fifth ward is back, sixth ward is point forward, anything up like this, seventh ward, final ward is down. So when we're working with these wards, working with these positions, again, it's important to keep in mind that to me, a ward is a safe place. They're a place that I'm going to move to and recover to and work from, but they're not positions I'm going to attack from. When I want to attack, I'm going to go into what is called sieges. So if you think about attacking a castle, sieging a castle, you don't go to a castle, go to the drawbridge and politely knock and hope someone lets you in. When you siege, you're being dynamic, you're being active, and you are driving in and through the space you're trying to get into. So this applies to this style of fighting as well. If wards are our safe positions, they're back here. In a ward, I'm content to sit and watch and see what is going on. If I decide to siege, that siege is going to be quick, dramatic, and I'm not going to stop in that position very long. I'm going to kind of hit the pose and then move out of it again. And that's really important to understanding the flow and fluidity of 133 and how to fight with this system. So before we go into the sieges, we're going to talk about distance, why that's important, and how we cover and control that distance. So with sword and buckler, I want to be 2 steps away or more when I'm in a fight. So if we look at it here, if this is my opponent, here I can hit my opponent. Notice I'm in my posture, in my position where I have a lot of my weight up. I'm canted, I'm leaning, I'm driving through. So my distance is about here. So this is where I can hit, whether it's a cut, whether it's thrust. This is my in range, I'm ready to strike distance. I'm gonna step back once and twice. And this distance is my warding distance. This is where the fight starts. If I'm further away, I can be more relaxed, or I can be in a ward, it doesn't really matter. When I'm these 2 steps away from my opponent, this is where the fight begins, and I need to be careful of what's going on, be aware of what's going on, because this is the distance the fight starts. So I want to get to this position here where I can hit my opponent. I cover that distance with a siege. There's one siege that you can use against pretty much everything. It's basically the bread and butter idea, bread and butter concept of 133 and kind of the heart of the system. And it ties into the comment we talked about last week of the final ward. So again, the 7th ward, final ward, is this low extended position. Your sword is down, your buckler is covering your hand. This is the final ward. It's also referred to as Lingenort, whereas Lingenort has low, middle, and high. Final ward is only shown as this low covered position here. So the primary siege, the main siege that is covered through most of 133 is called Halbschild, and it's somewhat similar to half shielding, driving through, and again, attacking. So I want my sword not quite 45 degrees forward, but in that ballpark, right? Same way here, I want it a little bit left right. It's not 45 degrees, it's definitely closer to 15 or 30. And this is important because this allows me to bring my buckler up and wrap over my shield, or my sword with my thumb. So again, I'm in this position like this. Sword is roughly 45 degrees forward. It is not pointed at my opponent. This is important. This is bad. Not only because of the broken wrist, but this doesn't give me. This doesn't claim any space in front of me. I want some blending of the two. And again, find what works for you. Find what works for your posture, your body type. But it's important that it is not straight ahead. This doesn't give any protection. Again, straight vertical doesn't find a wall. So looking for something somewhere in the middle, in that kind of gray space. So again, this is my vertical angle here, and then left to right, same thing. I don't want straight up and down, because then I've got a hole in my thumb here and isn't terribly exciting. I want to kind of relax. I really think about pulling my elbows out to kind of lock in, and I'm really pulling against my thumb. I'm trying to basically fold or wrap my sword over my buckler like this, but my thumb's in the way, and this locks everything in place. And this is half shield. This forward press, and again, you kind of see I've got my thumb wrapped over, locking everything in place. And this is important. This is the center of your attack, of your siege, attacking the other person. So when I'm sieging, it's important to keep in mind, like I said, is we're not going to stop. I don't try to attack this person. So again, take my 2 steps away. 1, 2. I don't find half shield and sit here and wait for them to do something. Because if I sit here, now I'm a step away, and it's easy for them to go like, oh, thanks, and kind of drive it and make that easy open attack to this whole arm. This whole arm is super exposed if I just hold this position and freeze here and don't do anything. So it's really important as you're drilling, as you're practicing this, that you think of these siege positions as passing moments. It's important that I find this position, but it's equally important that I don't stay there for very long. I immediately drive through and press through and attack. So again, finding those 2 steps away, getting in that nice hip hinge forward lean, terrible stretch on your hamstrings and glutes. Position here, I'm in my ward, whichever one makes you happy. I'm going to step forward, lock my hands together, make that base, immediately step through and drive. So again, facing the camera, I'm back, I'm in my ward, I'm safe, I'm protected, I'm just chilling here, seeing what happens. I decide to attack, I step, I find my siege, and as soon as I'm here, I'm immediately moving forward to do something else. So what is that something else? And that really depends on what your opponent's doing. If your opponent's like a big dumb pell right here, even if they're a person, some people are big dumb pells, I'm going to stab them very impolitely. So I'm distance, I'm in my ward, I step in to my siege, then I immediately just press this out, drive through. So again, I'm back here, hanging out in first ward. I go to attack, I come out, I go to my half shield. Notice I'm not cutting, I'm not making a big circle here. I'm just as quickly as I can, pick up my weapon, immediately drive through and attack. So again, back in my ward, catch, rest. And moving through controlling. So again, this is what you should be doing if your opponent doesn't react. I don't care if it's a pal, if it's a practice partner, if it's someone you're fighting. If they're not going to react to the fact that you are fighting and taking control of the center from the fight, you should try to stab them. So I'm here, I step in, I step through. Very quick, very direct. I don't care about anything else right now. I'm in my siege, I'm out of my siege. So again, facing the camera, I'm relaxed, siege and out. And just carrying this motion forward, driving into things, and moving through space. So in this kind of silly pantomime I'm doing right now, I'm assuming my opponent's in second ward. They're at the right shoulder. They're ready to swing across at me and do whatever they want. So when I drive in for this thrust, I'm putting this buckler towards that shoulder, towards that attack line, help control and isolate things. If I want, I can start bringing my sword across that line as well, putting it towards their sword arm, things like that. Also keep in mind they're going to have their own buckler. Don't punch their buckler with your sword. That's silly. But focus right now is just practicing into a siege and out. If I want to assume their sword is over to my right somehow instead, same thing. Stepping into my siege and back out. It's very easy to disengage, move the buckler wherever it needs to go. And this is where we start breaking that rule of your hands stick together until they don't, right? They stick together. When I'm back here, I'm using my buckler to hide, protect my hand. As I move forward, as I throw cuts, whatever I'm doing, they stick together. only once I'm past that threat range where I can do anything useful to protect my hand. Remember, buckler is your hand defense. Do I disengage and move my buckler actively where it's going to be useful? I should not be using my buckler like this, holding it out there, pulling it away, splitting things like this. You should be trying to use that buckler to cover that arm, cover that hand as you make your attacks. So that's the first option, right? I'm fighting a Pel, nothing happens, so I drive into my siege, I wind out, make my thrust, use this to cover that line of attack. However, if my opponent is not a Pel and wants to try to hit me with something, this is where Half Shield becomes extremely useful. So if you notice, as I step into Half Shield here, I have very strong control of the center of the fight, right? If the camera is my opponent, I'm here, I'm dead center on the camera, I'll move up a little bit. So I'm dead center on the camera, and the center line is covered. There's no real path down the center. So you're going to attack, especially if you're cocked up like this, your attack's probably going to come over here. So it's very easy for me from this position, as that attack comes in, I'm just going to turn and put it down. So again, I'll back it up so you can see a bit more of my feet. So I'm out. I step into my siege, coming into Half Shield. This attack comes from this side. I'm going to use my sword, direct catch the attack, keeping that movement forward that we just did. I'm going to press this down. And if you notice, this is very similar, near identical to 7th Ward, right? That final ward we talked about before. Yes, my feet are reversed, but I can fix that just as easily. So instead, if I start right foot forward, I step into my siege, the attack comes in, I'm going to catch, press it down, and we're ready to go. So getting this motion is really important as you start to develop a deeper understanding, deeper application of 133 Sword and Buckler. As I drive in, I catch, and whichever side the sword comes from, I'm just going to bring my weapon in line with yours and control and press down. So again, stepping in, catching. Stepping in, catching. Getting this motion down to borderline automatic unconscious is tantamount to good skill swordsmanship under 133 under Walpurgis. So again, core idea, we start wherever we want back here, whether it's a ward, whether it's something lazy in between, which is still some shape of a ward. I'm going to drive in, find my Half Shield, making sure I'm staying lean, staying pressed forward. Going to catch their weapon and press it down to finish in 7th. So again, against the Pels, you can see a little bit more in profile. Stepping in to Half Shield, pressing down to 7th. Step into Half Shield, press down the other way. Noticing to watch while I'm doing this, I'm constantly moving. I'm always dressing forward. I'm not pausing in Half Shield at all. I'm not waiting for this attack to come. If they're a skilled defender, if they can read distance management at all, the attack is going to happen. So I'm expecting this attack. I am prepared for it. I'm ready for it. I know what they're going to do because I'm not giving them many other options. I'm going to catch, pressing it down. And as I'm doing this, my hands are still together, right? This is one of the biggest things I see people slip up with when they're doing this. They get here, and then this happens. Because they really want to drive this arm down and slam this into the ground, and all of a sudden, this whole arm is exposed. And sure, I've got a little bit of control of your sword, but I'm also not squared up to even attack the other person I'm fighting anymore. So really make sure as you're doing this, as you're practicing this, as you step in, you step offline a little bit, but staying mostly squared forward, able to strike and react and work from that position. So again, practicing both sides, up, down, and through. So up to your siege, pressing down into 7th. So that is some of the first steps of understanding applying 133. The last thing I want to talk about today is kind of that reaction. So one of the biggest things that I see is a carryover from longsword, because no one starts with sword and buckler. Everyone starts with longsword. So everyone wants to step with their cuts. And yes, stepping with cuts is important. If you're lining up to cut with a one-handed sword, especially, getting the extra body rotation, the extra structure and power generated from that step is really important if you're cutting through an object. However, if we're assuming someone is sieging us, I'm not trying to step here to hit them with that cut because they've already taken control of the center, right? So if I wind up with my siege here and this person tries to cut against me with a step, I'm just gonna wind up stabbing them as I close out that line with my sword. They're giving up a lot of distance, a lot of space without successfully covering themselves. Even if they're properly throwing this cut and then stepping, now the step is giving you a lot less of that extra power, but you're not going to be closing off the line against someone who is stuck and rooted in a forward-bearing stance. So when I have people learn 133, there isn't a step with your cut, which isn't to say you never step with your cut. There isn't to say that doing this is bad or wrong, but when you're looking to engage a bind on an opponent who has come in toward you, this motion is going to be really slow. You're going to give up a lot of distance and tempo and footwork stuff, which we hopefully will talk about later. No promises though. But this pushed me so out of position of reaction before I can get a feel for the swords and what the swords are doing. And I don't have support from the opposite of my body. So if I step into this cut and that person is in half shield and presses down on my weapon, there's nothing I can do to stop this. With longsword, if I step into a cut, I've got both arms, I have a lot better chance of fighting to resist and controlling the weapon. With a one-handed weapon, if I cut into someone who's in half shield and they just catch it, there's nothing that I can do that's going to stop them from doing this to me. And if I'm taking that step, they don't even need to step to follow up to do anything other than stab me where they are. So this idea of a ward, this idea of a safe place, if someone comes close enough to me that they're a step away from hitting, I don't want to take that step until I know I have that center line. So when someone comes in, I'm just throwing this hard cut against it, trying to make them react so I can use my feet to decide what happens later. So this, as I said, ties into this idea of tempo, of you can only move your feet so fast, you move your arm faster than your feet. There's plenty of videos online highlighting that. If you're unsure what I mean, feel free to send a message, comment below, anything like that. But the real goal here is I want to control my space. I'm controlling it with my weapon, not my feet, not my body. I need this in front of me. I need to know what's going to happen first, and then I can move and react as I want to the situation. If I commit to this action early, I'm exposing myself to a lot of danger, a lot of extra risks that I can't compensate for like I can with longsword by having two hands on the weapon. So this just takes this arm away from me. If they're good, and now I've closed distance, so I don't have time to recover. So footwork, distance, though managing those things are what really helps control the fight with 133 with this style of sword and buckler. So it's really important that as you're drilling this, as you're practicing this, if you're working with a partner and they're sieging in, the other thing will cut from distance to keep yourself safe. And you'll find out with playing with this that if you take that step, you have a lot fewer options to react with than if you stay back here and let other things start to happen. So that's it for tonight, guys. Any other questions or comments, feel free to reach out. Happy to respond, happy to comment with those. Otherwise, I'll be back Monday night with more DUSAC. Thank you very much.